Have you ever heard of Gordon Northcote and Sanford Clark? If not, they are two of the suspects involved in the 1928 chicken coop murders. If you want to know more about this case, please continue watching.
You are watching Roll a Mile in My Shoes TV.
When Lewis was 12 years old and Nelson just 10, they disappeared from their home in Pomona, Los Angeles. Soon after, poultry ranch owner Gordon Northcote was suspected of their murder. It was believed that Northcote had hacked the older brother to death, as an axe was found at the ranch containing traces of human hair and blood. He went on to confess to the killings himself. At one point, he told authorities, "I felt sorry for the Nelsons after I killed Lewis. The little one was so distressed and wept so." Nelson was then murdered by Northcote's teenage nephew, Sanford Clark. Although Clark always maintained that he was forced to do so by his physically abusive uncle, Clark had been tasked with luring the young boys to the farm where they would be held captive in chicken coop before being raped and brutally murdered by Northcote. Different fragments of human skeletons were discovered buried at Northcote's farm, and analysis showed they belonged to multiple male children. To this day, it's estimated that Northcote may be responsible for over 20 deaths. Although he was found guilty on just 3 counts of murder, he was convicted for the killings of the Winslow brothers and teenage boy named Alvin Gothea. Gothea was a farmhand referred to for some time as the headless Mexican, as his body had remained unidentified until Northcote confessed to murdering him. He had been shot through the heart with a .22 caliber rifle and decapitated. I don't understand how this man could murder these children and decapitate them, especially 2 babies. I mean, even though they were not babies when they were murdered, but I just can't understand how these people were able to rape and brutally murder these children. And I mean, even though the boy was being abused, I can understand him trying to, I guess in some form, save himself. But I'm pretty sure after all these victims were abused sexually and murdered, the abuse didn't stop for this child either. Even though, you know, he was a victim himself, I can imagine, you know, the trauma that he must have had to endure, knowing that he had hands in killing or helped kill some of these children to, like I said before, save himself. Northcote was hanged in 1930 despite his unbothered facade through the trial. He conceded to fear after being led to the gallows. Moments before he plunged to his death, he was heard desperately pleading to witnesses a prayer. "Please say a prayer for me." The executioner himself proved to be far from straightforward, as the rope used was too slack to cause immediate death, and instead he struggled for 13 minutes and died from strangulation instead of neck breakage. I mean, it kind of serves him right that he had to suffer. Possibly, I hope he felt some suffering more than 13 minutes, because, I mean, his victims probably said the same thing, like, "Please don't kill me." And they probably were suffering, I'm sure, as they were being raped, and probably some of them were beaten as well, especially the little boy who was decapitated. I mean, how sick do you have to be to decapitate or murder a child in the first place? So I hope he suffered for longer than 13 minutes, and I hope that he is in hell suffering. And yes, I did say hell suffering, because I believe that there is a special place in hell for people like this. And I hope that, you know, his soul burns for eternity, because I feel like when you do things to children, I feel like you should not only suffer in this life, I feel like you should suffer in the afterlife for eternity in the pits of hell, because I believe that's where you're going if you do things like this to children. Changeling, a movie released in 2008 starring Angelina Jolie, is based on the crimes committed by Gordon Northcote, and the film focuses specifically on the disappearance of a 9-year-old boy named Walter Collins and his mother's desperate plea to find him. Sadly, his remains were never found, although Gordon's mother, Sarah Northcote, claimed responsibility for Walter's death. She was convicted for his murder, but it was possible she was covering for her son. Sarah was sentenced to 12 years imprisonment and was released on parole in May 1940. I hope that this lady didn't have anything to do with this boy's disappearance, and that she was covering for her son. But if by some sick chance that she did have something to do with this boy's murder or any of these other children's murder, I hope that she is getting what she deserves in the afterlife, if she is dead. But I think by now all of these people involved in this case are possibly dead. You know, but I especially hope that the person who did this, the son, is suffering in the afterlife, because he does not, and I repeat, he does not need to be not suffering for what he did, because I think this is just wrong. Because how can you do something like this to these children and, you know, get away with it? I mean, I think that he needs to be suffering. And, you know, I think that, you know, I hope he's suffering in the afterlife, because, like I said before, I believe there is a special place in hell for people who hurt children. And I hope that while he was in prison for his crimes, or if he ever went to prison or jail, I hope he got what he deserved while he was there. Because I think that, you know, even though he caused all this suffering to people, I hope that he, you know, had to endure some amount of suffering to feel what his victims might have felt. And it's funny that, as I said earlier, before his hanging, he was saying to the witnesses of the crowd to say a prayer for him. Sir, you don't deserve any kind of prayer. You deserve to go to hell and rot there. And that is my opinion, because I feel like, as I've said so many times, if people like this are able to be tortured every day until they are executed or serve whatever time they have in prison, if they are to be tortured every day, I feel like this would cut out a lot of crimes and heinous things that are done to children, elderly people, mentally disabled people, and disabled people altogether. I feel like this would cut out a lot of that, because they would know that if I do these things to these people and these children, I'm going to be tortured until my execution date, or either just be tortured to death. Because I believe that people who are being tortured should be tortured for a certain amount of time, and then they should be tortured to the point of death, but not to kill them. I feel like they should be tortured, healed a little bit, and then tortured some more. And it should continue for a period of time, and then they're executed. I mean, I think this would cut out a lot of crimes against elderly people, disabled people, and children. I just, I feel that way, and some people might disagree with that, but I think that it would cut out a lot of crimes against elderly, disabled, and children if the punishments were to match the crime. I feel like that would be, a deterrent and justice in itself if that were to be done. But some people might disagree with me. And if you are a person that disagrees with me about the punishment matching the crime, please let me know down in the comment section below why you disagree with me. Or even if you agree with me, please let me know down in the comment section below why you agree with me. And, let's get a discussion going about this, because I really want to know how a lot of people feel about things like this. But if you guys like this video, please don't forget to leave me a like, share the video, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one.